Well, hello. Hello, hello. You know, one of the great gigs about getting introduced is that you keep hearing this person that they're talking about, and you're like, man, that sounds like a really cool person. I sure would love me to meet whoever this person is. And I was telling Mark that this is, I think, the third or fourth time that I've had a chance to come back home. And this place really is home, and it feels like home since I left almost 13 years ago. And each time that I come back, this wave of nostalgia hits, and today this is like severe. This is so. If I like burst into tears at some point, it's not you. It's not because you've asked a mean question. You're not laughing at my jokes. Like, I'm just having a moment. And I think like the really, really awesome weather is like giving that full dosage of authenticity. Oh yes, we remember this because you know, like we're not just hearts and souls and minds. You also have these bodies. And your mind is precious, your soul is precious, your mind and spirit are totally precious. So is your body. And I'm a Florida boy. I'm also a brown dude. Florida boys and brown people were not meant to live at this level. Yeah, I think my first year at Colgate, when Rebecca and I and a few other friends were kind of here, I didn't know you could get icicles inside your nose. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know I had hair back then. When I started at Colgate, there was hair. We're going for the total effect now, so add this and this together. That's what I'm claiming. That's what I own. But back then, there was actual hair. And the hair would freeze, and it would make little tingling noises, and that was so bringing back lots of stuff. I also came here with one kid, my son, my stepson Jacob, who was 6 at that time, and we left here with 3. That's why I knew I had to get the hell out. Because I was like, 7 years, 2 more babies. If I spend 40 years here, you do the math. Like, I'm going to need a school bus to carry all these light brown children out of here. That's, I think, one of the main reasons why this is sentimental to be here, because my babies came into this world in the village of Hamilton. My sweet baby girl, Roya, who's now a first-year college student. Like, how in the name of Jesus and Muhammad and Confucius and Buddha does that happen? And both of my babies were born in the same room in the Hamilton, what do we call it now? Hospital? Community Memorial, yeah. And one of them was delivered by the wife of one of my religion colleagues, Harvey Sandima. So, yeah, lots of great memories, lots of sweet, sweet memories. And I think we are blessed in life when you have a homeful existence. When there are places in the world, and if you have one, you are blessed, and if you got more than one, you are blessed. Where you go, and you know that this is home, and it's always going to be home. I wanted, in order to rip apart any notion that what you're getting is a canned talk that I've already given 300 times, I wanted to do a little show of hands. I'm going to give you 3 possible topics that we could talk about. Oh yes, I'm that cool. Because I'm a nerd, we call this reaching deep into your hermeneutical ass and pulling out a talk on the spot, you know? Tell me which one of these 3 is more appealing, and if it's a tie, then we'll do like the NFL and cheat and get the second choice in there. That was a pass interference. I don't care who says what. And a sign that life is complicated, and that God doesn't answer all of your prayers, not at least in the way that you think, is that for the 14th straight year, I prayed for Tom Brady to be run over by a Mack truck and to have both of his legs broken and to have his arm on this side of the field and the rest of his body on the other. I'm a very nice person, except when it comes to certain things that I'm passionate about. And that did not happen. The Lord of the cosmos let my prayers go unheeded again. And the Sith Lord in the hoodie is now back in the Super Bowl. And I have to question God's infinite justice. Right? So these are your 3 topics, friends. Choose wisely. 1, would you like to have a little collection of life advice that I wish I had known maybe when I had hair? And these are some of the things that I've picked up since leaving Colgate. I want to come back and maybe share them. 2, would you like to have something that talks about how this little funny, slightly accented, furry brown boy from Florida, who sometimes talks like a black preacher and sometimes talks like he's from the Deep South, deal with it, that's just how we roll, has also ended up having a deep, deep commitment, not only to interfaith dialogue in the sense of we're going to sit around and have Muslims and Jews and Christians and Buddhists and Hindus and atheists and agnostics, oh my, all in the same room, but how do you be who you are and then drink deeply from the well of other faith traditions? That's number 2. And number 3, everybody's favorite topic. How does it feel, oh Mr. Omid, to be a public, it's like coming out of the closet, to be a out-of-the-closet Muslim in an age of the tweeter-in-chief? Those are your choices. All right, hands up, no judgment. It's all good. Hands up. Choice number 1. Few life advice things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Good. Interfaithy stuff. Be who you are. Drink deeply from the well of other faith traditions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. And then being Muslim in an age of Trump. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think the middle one kind of has it. So let's go there and come back. So officially, I tell people that I don't do interfaith. And here's the reason that I say I don't. It's not true. It's just not true. But it's what I tell people. A lot of the interfaith conversations around the country, it's a gig. It's a circuit. And if you go to enough of them, you'll see a lot of the same people going around. They're professional interfaith talkers. And I did that. I did that for a number of years, including when I was at Colgate. A few colleagues and I ended up driving down 2-3 times a year down to Princeton. Apparently you have to go to a snobby place to have interfaith dialogue. I was like, why don't we have interfaith dialogue right here? Why don't the Princeton people come here? Why do we have to go there? And then we would have the prominent Jew, the prominent Christian, and then whatever Muslim they could get. That's how I ended up there. And that somehow felt very dissatisfying to me. It felt like a lot of what we were doing was someone saying, oh, in my tradition, we have something that says, take care of the orphan. And then we would all mentally scroll through our text and be like, hey, I've got something that says, take care of the orphan too. Right? Except being a Muslim in an interfaith Abrahamic gathering feels like crashing somebody's terrible marriage date. It felt like, oh, these are Jews and Christians who've been going out for 2,000 years, occasionally killing each other. Okay, mainly one side is killing the other one. And you have half of the same text. Okay, you read it very differently, but on the Hebrew Bible / never call it Old Testament to our Jewish friends side, you have the same text, but you're interpreting it differently. So you've got half of a common text. Now you think that God somehow stopped being mean and God discovered love when Jesus comes to town, right? It's like, I don't want to deal with the meanness of the Jewish God. I want to have the loving God of Christianity. A little bit of problem there. Big problem there. But as a Muslim coming into a professional Jewish-Christian conversation, it felt like, man, there's been this 2,000-year-old inside joke that I don't get. And I'm only really here not because people value my jokes, my text, my scripture, but because you need me on that wall, you want me on that wall, because without me, you don't get to have your precious Abrahamic triangle. Right? If you just call it Jewish Christian, it's not quite as sexy as saying we have an Abrahamic conversation. So I'm sort of the little third dot of the triangle, and I'm not feeling that. I'm not feeling that. Like, I'm not feeling where you have a 2,000-year debate over whatever it is, Isaiah 53. I'm like, well, I don't have Isaiah 53. And we have a Messiah, but my Messiah doesn't sound like either the Jewish Messiah or the Jesus Messiah. Our Messiah is like, he's a prophet. And they're like, yes, this is not so interesting. And then there's also the other issue of, this is a sports analogy, this is my house. Whose house are you in? Whose house are you in? Who gets to be the host and who gets to be the guest? This was an issue for us when we were at Colgate. Colgate was good. Colgate gave us a room. One of these rooms, I forget which one it was, to use, this one? Yeah, to use for prayer, right? That was a good thing. It was an honor to be included. At the school that I am at now, we had a whole little, what our British friends would call controversy, about whether or not Muslims would be allowed to make the call to prayer. It became a whole national thing. I did 150 national interviews about, we say this is our home. I'm not your guest. If you say this is my home, the Christian students get to do the chapel bell thingy. The Jewish students get to do their thingy. I want to do my thingy. And this is my thingy. Just once a week for 2 minutes. And he was like, oh, no. This is a Christian institution. I was like, it was founded as a Christian institution. Built by a black architect who was not allowed to set foot on campus. Don't talk to me. Don't get the name of Jesus out of your mouth, infidel. Right? I know my history. I know the history of where I stand. So how do you have interfaith dialogue when one of you doesn't have a home in which you can be hospitable? I can't invite you to my place of worship because we don't have a church, a temple. So either we are a full participant in the chapel space, or I'm just your little tolerated guest in the corner that you pull out whenever you freak out and you realize just how damn white your institution is. Not that there's anything wrong with being white, but there is something wrong with being all white. Because if it's all white, it is not all right. Right? So, if you're going to put my face on your website to proclaim your diversity, then I want a space for my people to do our thing. I want money to run our programs, to have our speakers. Right? I don't want to be always somebody's guest without reciprocating, because then it doesn't feel like mutual. Being at Colgate was actually amazing in terms of pushing me to grow, not only as a person of faith, but also as somebody who could learn from my friends' practice of what gives shape and meaning and beauty to their life. It was weird in ways that I couldn't have also anticipated. So interfaith isn't always graceful. It's not always predictable. It's not even always at a certain time and a place and around the table. So, case in point, I never knew that I was a faculty of color until I came to Colgate. I was just Omid, this devilishly handsome brown guy with fur in parts of his body that nobody should have fur at. And where I went to school, there were like hundreds of kids that looked like me. Mocha color kids, latte color kids, right? Brown kids. But I was not a student of color, because, honey, we were all students of color. And then I came to Colgate and I went to my first faculty meeting, and I got my little notepad, and you do the thing where you're in a class that the professor's boring and you're not paying attention, so you like pretend to make notes, but you're actually like, after this, I want to go get laid, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. So you're just pretending to take notes, but because I'm a good boy, I was making my grocery list, right? Pick up milk. Don't forget that I have to get honey roasted Cheerios because my son doesn't eat plain Cheerios, and this and that. And then I had that odd feeling where, you know, there's 100 pair of eyes staring down your soul, right? And the discussion had gotten to how are we going to increase Colgate's diversity among our faculty. And I'm like, honey nut Cheerios, milk. If I want fruit, I have to drive to Wakeman's in Syracuse, because in those days you could only get apples in the grocery store in Hamilton in certain seasons. And I look up, and I'm like, oh, shit. They're talking about diversity, and I think I'm like one of the only brown people in the room. Therefore, I guess I'm supposed to say something. I'm faculty of color. Hey, I'm not just Omid, faculty of color. All right. I was here when 9/11 happened. Other than having my babies, probably nothing else has so shaped my life. I didn't leave the village of Hamilton for 6 weeks after 9/11. Because me, like Malcolm X loving radical dude, badass guy who can get up in front of 40,000 people and be like, the empire must come down. And the empire must come down. This shit is not sustainable. Every empire must collapse. I was scared to leave the village of Hamilton and what folks out there were going to do to me. Driving from here to Wakeman's was such a terrifying thought that it kept me from driving that 50-minute drive that I can probably do like that Netflix blindfolded challenge thing. What changed? The day after 9/11, there was an Episcopal minister in the village of Hamilton, Bruce McDuffie, who brought a vase of flowers and left it on the front steps of our house with a note saying, "We are so sorry. This is your home. You belong with us. please come to our church anytime that you want. And I did. Again and again. First for game night, because you got to check out people. If you're just paranoid enough, you'd be like, white people are inviting me to their church. What do they want? I'm from the South. Like, I have been to enough places where people are putting their hands on me and praying for me in tongues. And they're like, demon, be gone. I'm like, honey, I'm not the one with the demon. Mm-mm. Like, I speak perfect English. I don't know what the gibberish is thing that you just did, right? Those are not words. When Jesus said, go out there and proclaim the gospel, and people start speaking, they were speaking in languages. They were speaking Greek and Syriac, and they were not doing this gibberish thing, but separate issue. So I went, and they're playing games, loving, kind. Bruce McDuffie became a friend. Mark became a friend. Stephen Kepnes became a friend. Stephen and I have wonderful conversations about Judaism. We disagree on some important things. Right? He's a liberal Zionist. I am not. He basically thinks modernity saps religious traditions of their particularity. I think modernity is a mixed bag with some negative stuff and a lot of good stuff. Stephen asked me to go teach a course on Islamic modernity at the Saperstein. So we're sitting there having discussions of the encounter of Islam and modernity, including Muslims who are criticizing colonialism, which for us, most of us, includes not just American, not just the English, not just the French, but also the occupation of Palestinians in Saperstein. And Stephen is sitting right there, listening. Afterwards, he said, "That was really interesting. I learned some things. Let me also give a couple of recommendations." Right? Now, that's a kind of robust interfaith exchange which wouldn't have happened if that basis of friendship, of that trust, wasn't there. When 9/11 also happened, it pushed me to start reading things that I hadn't honestly read before. I started reading a lot of Dr. King. Mainly because I was trying to tell folks, please don't kill us. The part of Dr. King that I went to was about nonviolence, because I was like, please don't be violent towards folks that look like me. This was not an abstract fear, right? I mean, I went to room 105 or whatever it is in Lawrence Hall, that big lecture room, and I gave one of my 9/11 talks, and this very sweet Colgate student came up to me from New York City, and she was like, I just want to go nuke somebody. I was like, my dear heart, the people that you want to nuke will probably look like me. They'll probably look like my mom. They'll probably look like my dad. She's like, yeah, but I just feel so hurt. Right? So those kind of fears, I was like, well, we got to not be violent towards each other. So I started reading Dr. King, started teaching Dr. King. I started listening, as I came to call him through the years, Brother Martin. His voice was literally in my ear as I did all of my driving and talking and things, until his words became my friends, became intimate with them. And then at some point, I wasn't reading about Christianity. I was trying to learn from Brother Martin on how to live a life where love and justice mingle. How do you live out your life towards someone who is hateful to you? And seeing that in his case, it meant people who are letting their German Shepherd dogs loose on black folk in the South. This is not an abstract fear either. How do you maintain your dignity and your composure? I started listening to people like Rabbi Heschel, not to learn about something called Judaism, not this thing, not this package. I want to read about Heschel because when the Vietnam War was going on, Rabbi Heschel, whom I consider the greatest Jewish voice of the 20th century, stood up and said, as long as the Vietnamese are being bombed and as long as blacks are treated as they are in America, church, mosque, temple, and synagogue are forbidden to us. We are not allowed to set foot in a church or synagogue as long as we're dropping bombs on innocent people and treating black folk as we are. And he could have been an imam of the Muslim faith, except I didn't know imams of the Muslim faith post 9/11 who spoke like that. I had to go to Heschel, I had to go to Martin, I had to go to Malcolm. Colgate, in case you haven't discovered it yet, is a little remote. Our brochure back then said, we are centrally located with respect to New York, with respect to New York, Boston, and Toronto. And I was like, mother bleeper, that means you are 5 hours from anywhere, right? You are not in the middle of nowhere. You are on the periphery of nowhere, right? The good news is that when you're at a place like Colgate, you actually have enough time for silence to hear the voice of God that is coming up inside you. That doesn't happen everywhere. A lot of us who live in cities, there is a buzz, there is a hubbub, there is an excitement. I'm drawn to that as well. There are certain cities in this world that I love so much. Istanbul, Paris, Tehran, Cairo. Love them. But sometimes when you're in these big cities, it's all about the buzz and the energy that's around you. Can you still hear your own voice? Right? This place gives you a chance to hear the voice of Martin and Heschel and Rumi and the beautiful mentors that you got around you here, mingle with your own soul, and then the question is at some point, what do you have to say? What do you have to bring to the discussion? What healing are you going to bring to this broken, hurting, dysfunctional world that is around us? The solitude and the quiet that a place like Colgate offers is not just you being pre-law, pre-med, and so help me God if I get another student who's like, I'm going to apply for a consulting job. Can you write a recommendation letter? Don't tell me you just want to get out of this 4 years so you can make, like, how much are you making? 150. Like, what the hell are you qualified at the age of 21 to be opining on, to be earning 150? Tell me what you're going to do with what you learned. Okay? There's only 2 questions ever worth asking anybody. How deeply do you love? And whom do you serve? You got to serve somebody. You got to take care of somebody. These years can give you that chance to hear that quiet, subtle voice of God inside you. And in some place you're like a tree. You have to be rooted somewhere. You got to be anchored somewhere. And the roots of any tree do a couple of things for you. They ground you. They put your roots, as we say down south. They put your roots deep into the ground so that when that first good, solid, stiff wind hits your ass, you don't just topple over. I'm a religion professor. I think about spirituality shit day in and day out. I came to Colgate 10 days after getting married. Had 7 years of a very difficult marriage here. Went down to North Carolina, because that's where my wife was from, and I wanted to see if I could make her happy. Turned out it wasn't Colgate that was making her unhappy. It was me. And to watch a marriage in which we had brought kids into this world fall apart broke me in ways that I didn't know anybody could ever be broken. I didn't know you could cry that much. I thought at some point your tears would just run out. And that's when I really knew that I needed help. I needed guidance. Yes, the teachings of my own tradition. But I also needed to tap into someone like Desmond Tutu and think about forgiveness. Right? What does it mean to not just go on for the rest of your life hating somebody for what they've done to you? Because if you do, then you're just always attached to them. And what does it mean if that forgiveness isn't just a gift that you FedEx to somebody? Right? Amazon ain't delivering forgiveness to your door. That relationship has to become transformed. So I had to go to Tutu. I had to rediscover, what does Heschel say about awe? Right? How do I get my joy back when I don't get to see my babies for a week at a time? Like I don't know if there's a greater pain in the world. These are my children. These are the ones whose eyes look like my mother's eyes, whose skin feels like the softest thing I've ever touched in my life. And I get to see them for a week and not see them for a week. And that week where I don't get to see them, like that's death. Whenever death comes, I'm like, hello, friend. I have been through you 500 times already. And then I had to go back to Heschel, and Heschel talks about it is possible to live in awe in every breath because all that you need are three things: God, a soul, and a moment. And all three are always available. I was like, oh, I can actually have awe, that sense of wonder again in my life. I got married again. 5 months ago. It's good. It's good. I'm not the same young man that got married 10 days before coming to Colgate. I think when I was young, and as I get older, my definition of what it is to be young becomes a lot more generous, right? If I was being honest with myself, like what was it that attracted me to somebody? It's like, oh, they have to be hot. What did all the people that I was attracted to really had in common? It was not what their bookshelf looked like. It was not their social active. They were hot. Because I was stupid and shallow the way that most men are raised to be. That's some growing to do. I think now, when 50 is just around the corner, and I think about what is it that I'm looking for? Kindness. Right? Give me kindness above everything. More than being hot. My wife is hot. She's beautiful. Like when she smiles, I like melt into this brown little mush puddle, right? But the reason that she's so beautiful is that she's kind. Right? She wakes up in the morning and she looks at me and there's this. This is where she chooses to be. And that is a gift that you bring into somebody. I'll tell you one other thing about trees and then maybe see if you all have some comments. My wife is Swiss. And if you don't know anything about Switzerland beyond they're neutral, they got cheese and chocolate. That's just their PR. Here's the real Swiss agenda, and I will tell this even if my wife were standing right here. Switzerland is a weight loss country. See, this is how fat I am now. Have a good look, right? I was considerably, there was more of me to love. There was a hell of a lot more of me to love. And then I met my wife, and she goes, "My love, I wish to go for a short walk." Like, why? ESPN is here, and it's air conditioned inside, and I'm comfortable on the couch. But my wife wishes to go, and I wish to hold her hand, because her hand is the only other skin that is as lovely to hold as my baby's. So yes, we shall go for a walk. And like after 5 minutes, I'm like, it's been 5 minutes, and I'm ready to head back whenever you're ready. And that's funny. I don't know how to stop this. We just kind of put this, go away. All right. Then it turns out that the Swiss have this thing that they call a short walk, which is an hour and a half. Then there's a good walk, which is 3 hours. And then there's this demon-possessed thing called a hike. A hike is an effing 6 hours. So I walk my ass for an hour and a half every day. Short walk. Short walk, yes. And so now there's a lot less of me. My wife feels about trees the way that I feel about my babies. She has names for them. So when she moved here from Switzerland, I took her to what I consider one of the holiest places in America, Muir Woods, just north of San Francisco. If you've not been there, try to go. It's like one of the most beautiful collection of redwood trees you'll ever see. And I learned 2 things, and I will end with this. Redwood trees, I wish we had them out in the East Coast. They're absolutely stunning and gorgeous. Redwood trees can easily grow to be 200 plus feet tall. In other parts of California and the state of Washington, they can be even more magnificent. It turns out that redwood trees have roots that are only 6 to 8 feet deep. Right? Some of the tallest trees that have ever been. Right? They dwarf any living organism that has ever been. Hundreds of feet tall. The roots go down, for those of us who are not from around here, are you, boy? as the folks in the South keep telling me. They're just 2 meters deep. So how do they not topple over? They don't topple over because their roots reach out to the roots of other trees and they hang on to each other. One of the things I really urge you to do is to figure out whose roots do you want to tangle yours with. There will come a time in life where you get hit with a storm that you didn't see coming. It could be that a great love of your life leaves, that someone that you love dies, the economy tanks, you get fired, people don't laugh at your jokes. Some great tragedy. You can't just make it only based on your own roots. Have a community of folks that you're entangled with. You support them, and they support you. I'm not talking about like who's your squad for taking selfies and whatever. Right? Who are your people? A friend of mine, when I was going through that very terrible time, that I met, I was her FSEM advisor. She went on to get a PhD, and she herself is now a professor of Islamic studies. Good Jewish girl from Brooklyn, who studies Hindus and Muslims. That's kind of magic Colgate can produce. And we became friends over the years. I went to her wedding. I got to have second dance after her dad. That was like big love right there. And when I was going through that terrible, terrible time, she just reached out to me and just said, I'm in your boat. If it's tumultuous and wavy right now, if you go up, I'll come up with you. And if you go down, I'm going to come down with you. But I'm in your boat. Figure out who's in your boat. Figure out who are the ones that you don't even have to look to see if they're with you. Just have to reach back, and you know that there's going to be a hand that will reach forward to grab you. And that's love. That's love when it's real and gritty and everyday and lived. And that love doesn't just have to be romantic. It can come in a whole bunch of beautiful shades and colors. So I think just my hope and wish for you in being heretics. And I do love this name. And not just because everybody here, as Mark just told me, is a heretic to somebody else somewhere else. There's a kind of religion that's an inheritance. You are this because your mama was that, and your daddy was that. And, I don't know, I guess imagine this is what rich people do. You get handed their china. My people don't have china. We came to this country with 2 suitcases. But I imagine, like some people get handed down their china, and so then you get handed down your Islam and your Judaism and your Baptist faith and whatever else it might be. Yeah, don't have it be an inheritance. Have it be something that springs up from right under your feet. Have it be something that moves you and sustains you and inspires you. And as you get to the point of making your own little Omidlets, someday having your own babies, don't treat it like an inheritance. Treat it like a sustenance. What are the stories that are going to sustain your loved ones? What are the teachings that are going to feed their soul? And it's going to come from a lot of different traditions. And it's not scary. If your babies remember how to heal and be healed, that is a great gift to be sharing with them. I'm mindful that some of y'all have 120 classes. Deeply, deeply grateful for the chance to be with you and to share this time. Thank you to Mark for just the opportunity to be with you. Ending things is always weird, especially if you got to get up and hustle over to the next class, because professors don't like it when folks are late, I know. How about this? And may this be just seeds, my wife would be so proud, seeds that you plant in the garden of your soul, and they reach fruition at whatever time is right. If you got to run, well, don't, because it's slippery out there, but like, do the penguin shuffle very carefully out there. And if you can hang out and stay, I'm happy to hang out and stay and keep you company for just a few more minutes. And I'm happy to continue in whatever way seems best.
So for now, let's start.